He built a broadcast station from the ground up, with no vendors, no sponsors, and no one's permission but his own. He's filed with the FCC, bypassed NAB, and re-engineered the emergency alert system to think for itself. Some say he's a broadcast engineer. Others say he's a threat to the entire industry model. But around here, we just call him the signal's last line of defense. You're tuned in to Zero Trust Radio.
They told us radio didn't need this level of scrutiny. That we were just playing songs, not securing infrastructure. But we know better now. We know that our signal is our spine. Guys, I want to welcome you to the very first episode of Zero Trust Radio, episode 001. I'm your host, Chuck Helstein. I'm owner and chief engineer over here at KAZM Mellow Mountain Radio in Sedona. I'm joined, as always, by my notorious cohort, Mr. Ryan Thompson, behind the glass.
Hello, hello.
Brother, it's a long time since we've been on the mic together, but we kind of had this idea, and we've been mulling this around. We've done a lot of work here at the station in the last year and a half since we took it over. And some themes really started to emerge rather quickly. And one of them is very dear to my heart. It's something that I carry with me from my information security days. We'll dive into kind of this concept of zero trust, where it comes from, what it means, and how these principles can be applied to radio. And in future episodes, we'll look at how these different technologies and principles can really launch us way forward from where we've been.
I got to be honest, because when you first came to me and told me about this idea, and you said Zero Trust Radio, I'm a lay person, so it sounded like, hey, you got trust in radio, and you'd be like, nah, I got zero trust in radio.
Yeah, it's a fair thing, right? So some of my previous roles really taught me a lot about information, the source of information, how you handle information, where it comes from, where it goes to. And in information security, there is a principle called zero trust. And so I understand that sounds negative, but I think it actually leads to a really big positive in the end. So I'll try to explain a little bit about zero trust from a security perspective and kind of what it means. And then I'll try to meander our way down to how we can apply it here to radio. So to your point, right, what is zero trust? It's not that we don't trust radio. But what it does mean is that we assume that there is no trust kind of anywhere. Not in radio, not in data, not in television, right?
Okay, so wait. So you're the person, you're saying I have zero trust in everybody else.
I'm saying we should.
So
we should treat
you have
everything.
To verify things.
Yes, we're going to get to that step, right?
Okay.
Yep. So you're under the assumption that any threat, is how we say it in information security, but any piece of data, any audio, could come from either inside or outside, right? Threats can be internal and external. Therefore, the only way we can ensure that our security posture is legitimate, and you spilled the beans, right, is verify. So, there's a credo, trust but verify, or no trust and verify. Right? Radio right now has been always based on a model of trust and do not verify. I'm proposing we need to come at this from a holistic shift, like seismic, right? The poles must reverse in this case. We must trust nothing now and verify everything.
Can you explain that? What do you mean that it doesn't have, it says trust and no verify?
So as it sits here right now, right, in our station, if you go into the main studio, there's some boxes. One of them is an emergency alerting system box. Mm-hmm. When an alert fires into that system, I don't know where that came from, but I do know I trust it enough. It interrupts my air chain and plays immediately over our air. Now, from a security perspective, I'm concerned. Is that really Sedona, Arizona, the government? Who actually sent that alert? Right? We, across the country, assume it's from someone legitimate. Who's verifying that?
So it's almost like a universal key. You don't know. Somebody just opened it, but you don't know who.
Let's put it this way. Basically, a mailman can deliver a message to anybody. There's no locks on any of those mailboxes. And so we're just letting mail flow through out to our end user being the listener. Now, people always look at this and say, well, that's great. That's what's supposed to happen. Like, yes, in a perfect world. Now, what if someone hijacks those emergency alert tones and forces us to air something inappropriate or fires an alert like a fake tsunami warning, right?
Yeah.
That's going to cause panic. So right now, we're just lucky that no one has done that yet to the systems. Basically, we're lucky. I'm saying now rather than continue to ride that luck, like we've pressed it long enough.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah, we must verify everything now. To that next point, right, a big part of zero trust concepts is like end-to-end comprehensive security. So we just talked a little bit about emergency alerting. What if someone sends tones or codes that make our automation system do something we don't want, right? What if someone sends it out en masse? What if all the stations in northern Arizona or in the western half of the United States all air a tone or an alert, right? Do you trust other stations? Do you trust other computer operators to be running their systems in a way that are secure comprehensively? My answer is no, right? For a lot of reasons. Now, I don't want to say that like it's an overwhelming task. It's only overwhelming to people in radio because of the systems we use.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? If people were to lean into newer technologies and modernize, a lot of these principles come baked into the cake. Zero Trust Radio obviously does not work on products from 1974. There's no network connection back then for those devices. There's no power management. There's no secure access, right? And so when we talk comprehensive security too, Ryan, right, I don't want to just say it's about the computer. Like some of the steps we take here are like biometric in nature. Like when you come to KAZM, you don't have a key, right? You have a thumbprint. You have a code. You have timers. So we can have guests come in, have access to studios. We now have logging of when doors are open, studios are being used, right? This is all telemetry data, right? So imagine you can look at it from a biz ops perspective. How often are your studios being used, right? What is your net time of active usage? Maybe you can rent some of that space out now, right? That's like just one small avenue of where this can go. From a security perspective, are your doors always locked or not? I think it's pretty good to know, right? So again, that's the comprehensive security nature. It goes very deep down the rabbit hole. So I hope that's something we can continue to kind of talk about, and we'll go down some of those rabbit holes as well. Like in future shows, we'll talk about some of those security principles we use, right? Yeah. Like we use HomeKit a lot in Apple. People will find that pretty interesting. So we'll make a whole like special episode just specific to that. So another big piece of this zero trust puzzle, right? Kind of the third pillar, if you will. We talked about assume no trust. Be comprehensive in your security. The third thing would be continuous monitoring, right? And this is really where I think radio has holistically failed. When someone errors an emergency alert tone or when someone errors a station ID, we're basically trusting a system and a database to say it erred. Is that validation? I would call that logging, right? Logging is much different than validation, right? Mm-hmm. To validate this, you must actually hear it, right? This was a problem a long time ago. You'd have to physically have someone sit there with a radio. We don't have to do that now. We can log on to like a software-defined radio node, tune into our station, have it record it, have AI listen to that segment, and validate that it actually aired as we said it did at a location at a time, right? So now we've actually logged it and validated it. So now we're like way inception level deep of our air chain.
Makes sense.
So it's a really kind of nifty way of looking at it, but I want to take time too, though, and really kind of dig deep into this because, again, this is going to be kind of the...
So is this digging more deep in the fact that of how you're going to change that validation and show how you can do all that?
Well, as I said, as we go through the show, right, in future episodes, we're going to not go over zero trust principles. We're going to go through the actual applications of those principles at our actual production level. So the goal is to kind of show everyone under the hood here, right? One of the biggest problems that we've seen is the lack of decentralized software and knowledge within radio, right? This is a later principle within a broader zero trust kind of ethos. But there has to be a certain layer of kind of standards, intent, and kind of doing the right thing. This idea of vendor lock and not having the freedom to move laterally as a station between softwares and services, I think has done more damage really than like any DJ ever has.
Yeah, because I didn't realize, because I didn't know behind the scenes. I mean, I've been in radio, we touched in it 20 years ago,
yep,
and now back into it, and realize just the amount of fees and software and things and the cost of it that just adds up. And you look on one end, and then you look on the other, where you've basically created this deck where it's like you're basically paying nothing.
Yeah, I mean, right. The big thing with vendors, and I don't inherently dislike vendors, right? We have great vendor relationships as a station, right? Like, I'll shout them out, right? We work with Megaseg a ton, Rogue Amoeba with Audio Hijack and Loopback, Orban, obviously Mac OS, Apple, Focus, right? There's a lot of people in products that we believe in like super strongly. But those products I mentioned all kind of have a certain thread to them. And that's like extreme quality and no what I would call bloat.
Yeah.
So, think back when you first got your like first Dell Windows machine, get yourself a Dell, dude. That was fine, but I remember spending the first 2 days uninstalling software I didn't want, right? Norton Antivirus and AOL this and Comcast that.
Are you sure it wasn't because of the websites you were visiting?
Absolutely positive, brother, right? This is how those things came, like prepackaged. The thing I appreciate about Mac more than most things is that it's a closed ecosystem. Not any, Tom, Dick, or Harry can just come wander on into that ecosystem and get approved. So there's a certain level of inherent security there that I really appreciate. And a total lack of bloat, right? We run like 3 or 4 programs on that machine in total. That replaces racks and racks of gear. And to your point, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 worth of equipment gone, right? Just through a different perspective, trying to achieve ultimate security, reliability, and quality, right? It changes the perspective. So we talked a little bit about the principles of zero trust. I don't want to go too deep down that particular rabbit hole. I want to give more of a 30,000-foot view here in episode 001. But I want to talk a little bit about what we have built here and how it solves some problems. We kind of set the table a little bit, right? Like we have some security issues. We've got some vendor lock issues. And we've got some technology debt issues that we need to deal with, right? We're using software from the 70s, 80s, 90s. When we first got here, what were they running? Adobe Audition 1.0?
No, it was the predecessor, Cool Edit Pro.
Ooh, Cool Edit Pro, man. That was my favorite, right? That was like, I think before that we had Saw Pro Plus or something. It was like a whole other, basically getting way down the rabbit hole. I digress. I want to give you guys solutions too, right? I don't want to just call out and say, hey, these are the problems, right? We're going to have a lot of time to talk and hammer out some solutions, but I want to come out not feeling like this is a problem we can't solve, but more of kind of something with hope, right? So I always tell the people that I meet and kind of ask me, what was it like to rebuild this thing, right? One of the things I can point to was queuing, system queuing, right? Queue verifications. What I mean by that is there was literally a board with electricity flowing through it where satellite would send a queue signal, would trigger this click, 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 right? And then they're called relays. and that would turn the box on or off, let the audio pass through or not. We completely ripped that out and replaced it with a packet, a UDP packet over the network. So I was trying to explain this to my son one time, and he's like, so you just took electricity and you put it on the internet? I'm like, yes. And he's like, how did you do that again? I'm like, I don't know how to exactly explain it, but we did it. I have a little bit more words now, right? I thought about it. I can use my words. That's absolutely what we did. Instead of relying on satellite dishes, we yanked them out like day one. We went to internet only for our satellite boxes. And then we made our internet redundant. Not once, not twice, but 3 times, right? We have our Optimum main cable connection. We have our Quest DSL failover. And then we have a 4G failover as well, just in case, right? So, again, multi-layer kind of security thought process. But as we go, back to queues, right? Instead of having those clicks, power failures, these kind of things in play, we took it all out, right? There's no fuses to blow now. The hardest part was getting the satellite providers in our system to understand that language over the network. The good news is we're sharing it with you guys. We've already published some of this stuff, both like to the FCC. We've published some of it on my LinkedIn or our station's LinkedIn. We're starting up this whole concept of a new community where we share these things openly, because I think it's important to know that as a broadcaster, as an owner operator, as an engineer, you guys aren't alone, right? There's other people out here who have some good ideas and workarounds that maybe we haven't thought of. So to kind of finish that story about queuing, we don't use any of our 3 satellite dishes. All of our satellite boxes are internet-based. And we have a whole queue verification system, right? You can get these UDP queues directly in. We log them to Google Cloud. We get metadata from them. It's absolutely fantastic, right? And this isn't super revolutionary. I think what's revolutionary about it was we just used one piece of software and a new Mac. We didn't rack a single piece of equipment to be able to do that. I think that's pretty much like unheard of, right? And this kind of led us down the path of kind of more logging. So we got these EAS alerts, and I see them firing, and I see, okay, there's some metadata in there as well. We start going into the box, and now we can start to log all of our emergency alerting stuff automatically, right? Part of our real issue when we first went to this kind of idea of UDP packets across the network, I mentioned the satellite providers. Instead of working through their traditional channels, we just went directly to the command line of the satellite box. You can do a lot, right? And we published 2 articles on those, both for Wegener and ATX, where you can have the whole command line to yourself, make any of these changes. We're really about trying to demystify some of the technical problems in radio.
And I'm raising my hand right now because that is my biggest problem. Is I had no technical experience coming into this, and I still kind of don't know that world. I'm on the production side and live happily in the artist world. So understanding that and being able to look at it and have you explain it to me and understand has been crazy from my perspective, just because I never thought I would.
It's wild too, right? Because as you've been on me, or with me rather, in this journey, as we go down, you suddenly start to recognize, right? Like a year ago, Ryan and I were not having discussions about like metadata and JSON packets. Now we have discussions about JSON manipulation like daily. And if we don't, I'm like, why didn't we? So once it starts, I know people think it's super.
Explain what JSON is for people that don't understand. It's just a line of code, a way of programming.
Yeah, effectively, right. What I was trying to say, in I guess more normal terms, was that Ryan hadn't had any programming language experience prior, per se.
Nothing.
And now he's, whether he knows it or not, like deeply programming orchestration layers of automation, right? That's super impressive. And I think the thing I want people to realize, too, is a DJ can do this.
If I can do it, people, you can.
Guys, I'm a former DJ myself, right? A shitty one, but I still was. I tried. But once you start thinking in the mindset, it's almost like a waterfall starts to occur, because there's been so little movement in this realm within radio. I mean, you talk about ripe for the picking. Like, man, radio's ripe on the vine.
Well, I'll be honest with you, too. This is not... yes, it involves radio because we're in radio, but it also has applications outside of. So it's something that can also save your butt here or give you tools because it's taking over the world. This kind of
this methodology, right?
Thank you.
You gotta, and I don't want to harp on it like I have some magical experience because I don't. What I do have is something at scale, right? When you're talking a million of something, a million servers, 1 billion plus customers, multi-billions of dollars of transactions, those type of movements in data, security is like of the utmost importance. It's like literally at the ethos. People go to the military, they get certain things drilled into them. Like 20 years in InfoSec, like this is my PTSD. I'm like, it's not secure. We must do something.
Right. And looking where radio's going, because there are so many other outlets for radio, for people, for music, podcasts, anything, that it's got to kind of pivot from that entertainment to utility.
Yeah. I mean,
and then secure itself and be able to provide for the community.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there, right? Like we're talking just about an ethos shift to assuming something aired to proactively saying it aired. And like, think of it as like you're talking the game, but now we can back it up. We couldn't always, and I think that's what people didn't realize. Radio didn't mean to not have good ratings and didn't mean to not always sound good on AM. But what it didn't have was technology, right? If you look now at what we can apply to it, it's like fantastic. We can do literally anything we want to it, right? And so when you start to look at it rather than we're limited, I choose to look at it like we're unlimited. This is like a 1960s Chevelle that's been sitting there, but it's 2025. We've got like nitrous oxide. We've got like big tires.
Apple CarPlay.
Well, amongst other things. Yeah, that's a great thing, right? In Dash, that's the future of radio, brother. But we'll save that whole topic for a specific thing because we did that too. We tackled that. Radio DNS was a
from
weekend.
A small AM station in Sedona.
We did. It was crazy. So I kind of want to continue on and explain a little more kind of some of the nuts and bolts, right? We mentioned queuing, how we went from electrical to effectively digital or network based, EAS logging, satellite box. We kind of cracked into the command lines to get in there and make it work the way we needed to. But I think the biggest piece of our puzzle that I think people are going to really have a hard time understanding, but see it in the future to be everything, would be like our system. And our system, I would say, is what's affectionately known to us as N8N, right? And at a higher level, we'll call that orchestration, right? And so people say, well, what do you mean orchestration? So I told you about like these queues, and we talked about EAS alerts, and we talked about satellite boxes. All these things have to talk, right? And they go somewhere on this network now. Think of N8N as a signal routing layer, right? A traffic cop, if you will. You can't have queues not hitting because EAS said something, and you can't have your satellite feeds not hit because you're in a different queue system. N8N, or an orchestration layer, as we'll call it kind of from here on out, starts to provide the brain, the if and the what if statement, if you will. And I think that's where you and I have seen some of like the most hugest breakthroughs and gains, where we've now been able to see almost not like Miss Cleo, but the future of radio, right? It's through something like an orchestration layer and telemetry data, where it becomes ubiquitous, almost like the sky's the limit. So I wrote a post too about this and basically said like the radio DJ's dead. Like, long live the radio DJ. The new like sexy radio DJ is going to be the dude that can write that orchestration layer, right? Because that then allows us to apply zero trust security principles at scale. It allows us to intake so much more data. I get so excited when I see like our servers. We've got IP addresses, we've got locations, we've got time spent listening. Like, there's just so much data waiting to be mined. This brain helps apply rules based on that data set. Yeah. Right? So a good example in real life. Let's say you live in Maricopa County. but our stations happen to be in Yavapai County, right? I get an alert from Yavapai County. You don't want to hear it in Maricopa, right? Now I have a whole list of geographic IP information of where my listeners are. It's just sitting there. So this tone comes in. We've got a database, and we say, hey, listen, we don't want to pipe this to anyone in Maricopa, but to anyone in Yavapai, fire at will. So anyone listening on their phone will only hear the one from Yavapai. If you're in Maricopa, you're not going to hear anything, right? You might hear like some bed music. You may hear a commercial. It may be like ubiquitous. You not even realize that there's an alert going on, right? Same thing for texting. Same thing for even songs, right? Maybe you don't want to hear a New York State of Mind if you're in Boston, right? So we can start to apply different logic based on where you are and what's going on in the environments around you. So this is like our jumping off point of really kind of the future of radio and kind of where we really started to hammer our way in here. So those are some of the things that we've built to kind of overcome some of the traditional hurdles and that we look forward to kind of sharing with everyone, man.
And it's almost, you're writing it as it's happening so that people can kind of look back on it and follow that blueprint. But also it gives you the tools that give you each market's unique thing that's to their market that they need. They can orchestrate it from this, correct?
Oh, it's like unlimited. I don't mean to stutter, but there's so many places I can go with that. Again, I hear a lot of people saying like AI is horrible. We don't want that in radio. It's going to replace the DJ. Like maybe, or maybe you get your own kind of hyper-local personalized DJ for your area that tells you the weather within a 2-mile radius of your house, right? Because if you're listening from your computer, we know where you're at by IP, these kind of things, right? So did the DJ die or did the DJ become like ever-present? Now becomes the question. So, right, weather is a great example of this. Weather changes a lot, right? You and I have spent a year and a half toying with this. Do we run weather once a day, twice a day? The reality is where we are geographically, the weather's funny here. It changes like constantly, man. It's odd to say that in the desert, right? But in Sedona, it snows a couple inches sometimes, and then the next day it's like 70 degrees. It's usually like brutally hot, but a little bit of everything kind of comes through. And so what we decided was we serve a rather large region. Sedona's weather is not representative of Phoenix. It's not representative of Flagstaff. It's not representative of Prescott. So we created an AI agent that can do quick hits hourly, like from NOAA.
Straight from their website. As soon as it updates, it gets put on there and put out.
So instead of airing weather once or twice, we are every hour with a custom AI-generated weather person telling you specifically what's relevant in your area.
Yeah.
So, and to be honest, we're not doing the best job yet. We need to go more local, but we're building it out as we go, so it takes some time, right?
Right.
So I want to talk a little bit about, too, what we built, but kind of what I think was kind of broken in your traditional stacks that maybe people don't, recognize. And I don't say this as like bad things, but they're things that have to be addressed in order to move forward. Like if that's fair. So, when we came in, I almost had to put my head down and pretend like anything I'd ever heard before about radio no longer existed. And made like really brutally tough decisions on how we were going to move forward and streamline, right? And kind of stay nimble, or for my information security brethren, how do we stay agile, right? There's going to be things that pop up. There always is. In InfoSec, we call them incidents. Out here, we call it your transmitter broke. Right? Same idea. In InfoSec, that's a very high-level incident. In Radio Land, that's also a really high-level incident. Your transmitter's down. You've got no signal. Your advertisers are expecting certain things from you, right? In your traditional stack within a radio station, there's no data in a lot of cases to figure out how those failures occurred. And it's like a huge problem, man. I see so many things that have gone wrong in radio where someone tapes something, solders something, and says, well, it's fixed for now, right? Until the next problem happens. And then they're diverted and they go fix that problem. 17 years later, that solder from that problem still never got fixed. So I mentioned this before as tech debt, but it's effectively where we're at with radio. It's all tech debt now, right? So how do we move this forward? There's a huge fight in the FCC right now about how do we move forward with emergency alerting systems? Do we take it off the table? Do we make it software only? Do we make it hardware only? I personally propose we do an all approach. We need software and hardware. We need to have paths that everybody can kind of upgrade with and look forward to and move to. So when we talk about these traditional stacks, super frustrating. I see stations paying $20,000, $30,000 for phone systems.
Like, it's ridiculous.
Why are we doing that?
Blew my mind.
Or even computer systems, man. Like, it hurts my soul. I haven't gone into a station yet and asked, like, when's the last time you passed your box? And have someone say within, like, the last 30 days. It never happens. Like, we here at the station, and this probably is an indictment on the level of loser I am, like, patch every Friday, right? Like, we log in, we update our servers. I would tell you we update our Macs that frequently, but because they're Macs, we don't, right? You guys get your Windows Update Thursdays or whatever they are. We don't have those here. These are some of the things, again, where if you look at it through just a slightly different lens, a little bit different perspective and a little bit more of an open mind, we saved so many thousands of dollars from just ditching those systems. It's like unbelievable. And people say, well, that's such a heavy lift. Like, is it? Like, the heaviest lift was getting rid of the computers and all the old cables.
Well, and then just doing it for the first time, seeing if it works. That's the heaviest lift. And once it's done, and then you're like, okay, and you look back and you're like, yeah, you don't take these steps here. These are the steps you take. It's easy. It's like, why wouldn't you?
And that's kind of why, in a sense, I feel like we're compelled to do this and talk about these things, because for better or for worse, we did a lot of that. And rather than sit here and tell you, hey, we did this and it's awesome, we also want to start a conversation and help everyone else do it too. Margins in radio are slim right now, brother.
Yeah.
Right? Advertising isn't what it used to be. And the way that people think about radio needs to shift in that regard as well. One of the things that I think makes us interesting is we try to rely less on advertisers than like any other station in the history of the earth. There's so many other ways stations can use technology, funds, ideas, land, services to fund their operations. And I don't sit here and say that we've got it all figured out, right? Like, we're still a hurting AM station like every other one out there.
You just got to be inquisitive enough to go hunt for these opportunities a little bit and just try and ask questions and
well, just, I hate to always sound like this is a Matrix moment, but like, take the other pill. I see a lot of stations sitting on tons of land. I was up in one not too long ago in California. This place had more parking spots than like a trailer park. And I think to myself, if they just rented out 5 or 10 spaces at $50 a pop in California or Boston or New York, or these stations where there's, certain metropolises acquainted to them, that could be thousands of dollars in extra income, right? Conversely, like rural stations, and we'll do a whole podcast topic just on this, like alternative means to fundraise within radio or earn money. Repurposing your land, repurposing your towers. I see so many AM or FM towers just being left to die now. There's municipalities that need towers. I don't want to connect the dots for you, but if a municipality needs a tower and you happen to have a tower, it feels like you should probably just have a conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And so we really want to kind of highlight some of those conversations that we have had. And probably best of all the failures that we've had. Because, brother, the amount of...
a lot.
When I look back at like the first weeks we were on the air...
We're still alive.
To anyone that like listens, I'm like super appreciative, because I did you dirty. I shouldn't have done you like that the first couple of weeks. That was my bad. But in all honesty, it took that level of... ignorance, blind ignorance, and B, lack of knowing to be able to have like the, fortitude to give it a shot.
Yeah.
I was so stupid I didn't know any better. So I don't say all this is a cautionary tale, but more like a hopeful tale, right? Like if I can stumble my way through it with just a couple of security principles and an idea that things should be kind of shared and open, I think we can get a lot done, man. Like that was just, mostly two of us sitting here banging our heads against the wall and we move mountains.
Yeah.
I told people we didn't come up the same side of the mountain every other radio station crew did. We bushwhacked our way through the other side. But when we got there, man, we have these like whole other ideas. And we're like, guys, check out the side of the mountain. It's wild. There's all kinds of stuff over here. There's Mac systems and there's audio over IP for free and there's free phone services. And people look at us like we just came out of the jungle, brother.
Right.
It's like, no, we came out the desert, man. So, I guess to wrap this one up, I don't know even how long we've been talking now, but I want to say we don't want you guys to be paranoid. And we don't want to come out with this idea that you can't trust anything. But the reality is it's 2025, man, and we can't trust anything. And there should be a healthy level of paranoia, right? And so I want to give you guys solutions to those things. I want to have discussions about what those paranoias are, how we can collectively overcome them, right? I was talking with someone recently about these principles and how we move forward. A little bit more back to emergency alerting, right? A software solution sounds good, but again, you're going to be asking people to install it on like Windows XP on an AM station that it hasn't been updated in like 15 years. Like, I think that violates every security principle I've mentioned here today just instantly, right? There's like no layered security there. There's no methodology that would say this is strengthening anything. I think you'd look at it and say this weakens the system holistically. But we don't also want to be in this place where innovation is always being stifled. Like software is a viable solution, but it can't be driven by Sage. It can't be driven by NAB. Like it has to be driven by people who don't have any sort of financial tie or like vendor threat or engagement kind of model, right? That's what makes us so interesting. And again, like I said, we're not anti-vendor. We have vendors that we super love and respect, right? Like,
oh yeah,
brother, like I pray to Bob Orban like in my sleep. It's weird, because
but when you're just as a consumer, when you get locked in and you're not getting the benefit and you're still just getting pounded and pounded and pounded, it just feels like, I mean, you look at the industry itself and other radio stations, and it's crazy.
Well, since we're talking a lot about kind of this idea of zero trust and security, and I danced around emergency alerting. I look at some of these things, right? I mentioned Sage. It's not that I have anything problematic with them, but like imagine a world where you buy a computer, and then in order for you to continually use that computer, you got to pay $650 a quarter for the privilege because they've updated it for you. Like the brutal reality is margins in radio were slim to begin with. Like we no longer have the ability to repurpose our funds to a vendor's growth.
Yeah, like back in the heyday when big ad dollars were coming in, and even in rural parts, it still trickled down. It was great. You could afford those things because that's what it took. It took that innovation, but technology's caught up so fast and so much that it's like you can't.
It hurts my head, man. Like we look at it, and really, what an EAS box in some level is a stack of RSS feeds from municipalities telling you something has gone terribly wrong, right? So I understand there's a need for that at a lot of stations because they may not have the technical expertise to program their way out of that. But that stifles innovation too. You have to allow those of us that can to do it and show people how it can be done without charging them for the privilege of it, right? I'm all about licensing and things like that, except when it comes to public safety and like infrastructure.
Yeah,
that's problematic to me. That's why we filed, right, as a station with the FCC, and we released our IP publicly, right? It's not perfect, and I joke about this too. I'm now a 2-time publisher of the worst FCC ex parte filings in history.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. It's always nice to be publicly humiliated, but it's not about
shame.
Right?
Shame.
It's not about the message. And shout out to Gary Vaynerchuk in this one, right? I don't know if you guys should follow him or not, but he's been like a really kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say guiding force, but the way he thinks things through, it resonates with me, right? So one of his core principles, man, is like, don't hide the messiness of it, right? If I came out here and told you that we run like the best station and it was like super polished, I don't think the message is as real. Like the way I post things on LinkedIn or Medium or even to the FCC are meant to be a little bit tongue in cheek, but provide you kind of the core knowledge. No one wants to read like the general radio operator's handbook anymore, sadly. Like I know I do, but let's be real, most people do not. It has to be written in a way that's like digestible with tools that people can understand, and in ways that are consumable, without acting better than or trying to keep secrets, right? Like I'm not a huge fan. We're big proponents, not of like open source per se, but open IP, right? So we show you how we do our orchestration, for weather. We show you how we do our radio DNS. We're going to show you guys all of those things, and we're excited to do it. And I also want to point this out. If you do listen to these, right, as we figure it out, and you come at us and say, hey, did you ever look at it from this perspective? Share that with us, man. We probably have not.
Right.
Like we're doing the best. We're sadly a one of one on this Mac infrastructure path, which we'll talk about in a future episode too. But a lot of the stuff we do is vendor agnostic, right? That's very important, especially in the emergency alerting realm. Like a lot of the stuff we do is cloud-based. And, people talk about, well, there needs to be security there. Can I tell you some of the most secure places I've ever been to are actually data centers, right? And so, I laugh. So you prefer my station in like rural somewhere behind a locked wooden door with a box rather than like inception layer security and like an armor forced compound? Like I think that's flawed logic, right? And it's not that I'm no better than anyone. I just don't know if anyone's considered it that way before. Do you know how many certifications go in to have a data center where you can store like financial data? There's a lot. Like SOX compliance costs companies hundreds of thousands of dollars. I hate to say it, we're not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to secure our infrastructure here at KAZM.
Lows.
I wish we were. But I want to leave it at that for today, guys. This is kind of the concept. Welcome to Zero Trust Radio. We're going to try to provide you with some insights, some ideas, and literally just come on, shoot it straight with you. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we found. Here's some of the things we haven't found. I hope in future states we can have conversations where we get some things submitted or ideas that are yours. For those of you tuning in for the first time, I appreciate it. Ryan, I appreciate you for riding through me with this one as well.
Absolutely, brother.
It'll be a fun journey. We'll get better at this as we go. But for now, welcome to Zero Trust Radio, the broadcast stack that doesn't assume, but verifies.